Welcome to our series, He Speaks, where we are aiming to amplify the voices of men who choose to speak about pain, healing, growth, and everything in between. Because there is strength in speaking and healing in being heard. My hope is that the stories we share on He Speaks will remind others that you are not alone. You are not weak for struggling, and you are not broken for needing help. Just a reminder that we might be discussing some sensitive topics and challenging experiences, and that viewer discretion is advised. Today we are joined by Terry Playle, a fourth-generation Indigenous man living in Brisbane. He is here to share his powerful story about facing some of life's most challenging situations, and this can include things that have some very tough chapters that others might resonate with, in the hope that his voice might help others. So, this is his voice, and we are grateful to share it. Hello, Terry, and welcome. Will you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your background and where you're from?
Thanks, Jòh-Ann. Thanks for having me here this evening. Um, name's Terry Playle. I'm, like as you just said, fourth generation Indigenous man. Born in Lithgow in New South Wales, and grew up all around New South Wales. I've travelled pretty much most of Australia, and now living in Brisbane. I've been living in Brisbane. It's probably the longest I've lived in one place. So I moved to Brisbane when I was 15 with the family. So I've been in Brisbane now for, what's that, 42 years, 43 years I've been in Brisbane, I guess, because I'm 58 now, so 58 this year. Um, it's been a bit of a journey. I don't see my story as being unique or anything very special. It's a story that's told throughout the world. It's just varying degrees of that story, and so by me speaking this evening is just to give men, or anybody for that matter, but men especially, the courage to speak up about what's going on in their life. Because the only way that we can start to heal is first acknowledging, what the issues are. And like I said, I don't see my stories being exceptionally special. I have had a pretty good childhood, with challenges. Being a white-skinned Indigenous man was a bit of a challenge growing up as a kid, because it was, identifying as an Indigenous person, and everybody looking at you going, hang on, you're a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, white-skinned, and you're saying that you're Indigenous. And then on the other side of the scale, our own Indigenous mobs are then sort of looking at you going, well, hang on, you're identifying as an Indigenous person, but you're white-skinned. So, for me, that was a challenging time for me, because my grandmother, so the Indigenous side is on my mother's side. On my father's side, I have Swiss and Irish.
Oh, yeah.
So I've got a pretty good mix. And hence that's where the blonde hair and the blue eyes come from, and the white skin is the Irish and the Swiss side.
On that note, I'm South African, so we had a very specific cultural group in South Africa that had exactly that same problem, where skin color was quite a significant thing, where they were a bit too brown to fit in with the white population, and a
Yeah,
bit too light to fit in with the darker skinned African population.
yeah,
And now I'm living in New Zealand, and we have the same thing with our Maori population, where a lot of them are quite fair-skinned.
hmm
Um, and sometimes, that can cause some judgment on the claims, I guess, of
yeah,
being indigenous to that area.
yeah.
So, obviously, I know a little bit about your background and some of the challenges that you faced. Um, do you mind telling us a bit about your stories on challenges that you went through and
Yeah.
how you got to the point of developing the community that we'll be talking about a bit later.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like I said, growing up, I felt that I had a pretty good childhood. I got to see a lot of the country because my father was a farmer, so he had to go where the work was. So, I've travelled, lived all around New South Wales, down Victoria. I've been over to Western Australia, um, obviously in Queensland. But most of the time moving around was around New South Wales and spent a couple of years over in Western Australia and around Victoria, that sort of area. So um, that side of it was pretty good. So I got to see a lot of the countryside. The downside, I guess, I couldn't create a long-term connection with people, because we'd be in one place for 12 months and then we'd move on and have to start a new school, make new friends. So it was pretty hard to sort of get a real connection with people in one place because it sort of knew that within a period of time that we'd be moving on. So that created challenges in itself. I spent as I said, my father was a farmhand, so he'd travel around where the work was. Um, so I spent a lot of time out in country, in the farms and big sheep stations, cotton stations, wheat, that sort of stuff. So there was a lot of time, I guess, that was spent by myself as a kid as well. So that side of it was really good. I got to do going out chasing rabbits and doing hunting and all that sort of stuff. So it was fantastic. Um, Again, being from again, it's not exclusive to, but coming from the Indigenous side, what I know now, what I've learnt over the last 20, 30 years of my life, there's a lot of intergenerational trauma that comes through. And it's passed now from generation to generation. And unfortunately, the Indigenous side, there's a lot of domestic violence, a lot of alcohol abuse, that sort of thing. So I certainly, as a kid, experienced that sort of stuff through my family, and my immediate family, as well as um, the extended family, the uncles and aunties, and all that sort of stuff. So alcohol was a big part, and with that, alcohol abuse come domestic violence and stuff like that. So as a kid, I was exposed to a lot of that. And again, I don't think that's just for me. That's a big story for most people, you know. And so that sort of for me uh, really formed my life, I guess. Coming into adulthood, I sort of brought all that with me. And when I was old enough to drink, I started drinking. Not a lot. I didn't see myself as a big drinker as such. I'd only drink on the weekends. I've been working since I've been the age of 15. So um, in lots of different various jobs, I think I started out as a trolley boy pushing trolleys at Coles. And my career with Coles, I think I did maybe 25 to 30 years with Coles all up, in varying stages, very differing times. So yeah, so from the drinking side of things, it wasn't all of the time. It would have been just on the weekends, going out and partying and stuff like that. But it got to a stage there where I was drinking, and it was like when I had a drink, I wouldn't stop until I couldn't drink anymore. So that started to become more and more prevalent as I got older and going through different issues, and instead of dealing with them by talking about it or seeking help with it, it was seeking that solution in the bottle, I guess. Again, it wasn't drinking all the time. I'd probably only drink a couple of times a week, but I'd have a really, really hard crack. And as I put it, and if I couldn't, I wouldn't stop until I just couldn't drink. So that went on for a fair bit of my life, and that affected my relationships coming through as well. So, before I was married, I went through quite a few relationships where that sort of that violence started coming into it as well. It wasn't again a lot. It'd be every now and again, but it just wasn't good. I wasn't heading in the right direction. So, um, I've got married. I've been married for what have we had? I think we just celebrated our 35th. So we've been together for quite a while. But it was up until probably 10 years ago. I went into a business deal, and the business partner I had at the time pretty much did the dirty on me and took me to the cleaners. So I almost lost the house. So pretty much just about lost the wife, lost the money that I put into the business. It was probably about $250,000. So again, all of those things that happen to people. And so I guess from my upbringing, from what I saw through my family and, the drinking and the violence and stuff like that I could see that really starting to come through more and more. So again, instead of dealing with the issues by seeking help, professional help, going and speaking to somebody and admitting that I've got a problem, I just kept on doing it. So it got to a stage around about 10 years ago where I was sitting on my back deck here at home, and after about my third bottle of wine, and it was only probably about 12 months ago before then that I had the bad business dealings and stuff like that. So the marriage and that wasn't in a good spot because of what happened. So I was sitting on the back deck and I was contemplating whether I was going to be, flip the coin, whether I was going to be here tomorrow or whether I was going to go and seek some help. Unfortunately, the coin went to the other way and I'm still here. So, I guess for me, it's like, what was the factor that got me to that stage is I always knew within myself that there was something a lot more than what I was doing and that there was a better way. So I started um, tapping more into my indigenous culture and the spirituality that comes with being indigenous and the connection to, the country and animals and stuff like that. So um, that's what sort of started driving me. And after I flipped the coin, I said, okay, said to myself, I need help. Um, I need to go to a retreat. I need to find somewhere where I go that I can go. I need to get away from where I am at the moment, and I need to speak to somebody that can help me. And it so happened that the first, I just basically said to myself, I'll have a look, on Google, and the first one that comes up, that's where I'm going to go. So opened up the phone, clicked in retreats, and one come up at Gympie. And funnily enough, it was called Heartland. So all through my life, so I've been really blocked off, really closed off, and my heart especially was very blocked. So I was very protective of letting anyone or anything in that could hurt me. So it was quite fortuitous that the one that came up was Heartland, so it was about the heart. So it was a beautiful man up there, Les Dyer, and short story is, went up there and it was a 7-day retreat, and I was the only bloke out of 18 people. So out of 18 people, there was 17 women and just me. So that was again
Interesting
very,
experience being
it
that
was,
bloke.
it was very confronting. I'm going, okay, what have I got myself in for? But that was the catalyst for me, um, to really open up and start the journey of recovery and, healing and finding out what is. So I really had the heart open up while I was up there, and I ended up going up there probably for 5, 6 years in a row. I'd go up at least once a year, maybe twice a year, and then that just led me into opening up more. Um, with spirituality and really starting to get fully connected into my culture because it's something that I wasn't doing as I was growing up because of that issues of lack of identity, I guess.
Yeah.
So it was only fortunate that my grandmother was very well known in Australia. So she was my cultural compass, I guess. So she's always been a fighter. She's travelled around Australia. Well, she did when she was alive. Travelled around Australia, lecturing in the universities and about the stolen generation and about Indigenous culture. So yeah. So for me,
It wasn't
what's
just
got
one
me
main thing, it was basically a long period of things and not really recognizing that it was a problem until it
very much
was
so.
a problem.
It was a problem, a huge problem.
Yeah,
So, and when you're that far into it, and that's how it becomes, where you go, oh, well, it's not a problem. I'm just having a few drinks on a Friday night or a Saturday night, but instead of having a couple of drinks, sitting there watching the football, I'd drink, a dozen beers,
yeah.
and then I'd fall asleep on the couch. So
Yeah, and I think the big thing is if you're using alcohol sort of as an escape to not deal with things, that's different than having just a glass to relax every now and again. If you're not dealing with things and then just using alcohol to sort of cover it up to feel better in that moment because you get that buzz and you get taken away out of reality, then
very much so.
it is basically a problem, but often it's not easily recognized that it is a
Yeah,
problem if you're
yeah.
in
Oh,
that moment.
100%, 100%. And that's it's been a very interesting journey, and it's not over. It never stops. I haven't touched alcohol in probably close to 4 years. So I gave up cold turkey. I just woke up one morning and doing what I was by doing with my spiritual practices and the cultural practice and stuff like that. And I see that in indigenous communities and stuff like that. It's a huge problem. So yeah, I just woke up one morning and I just went, I don't need to drink anymore. And I just stopped cold
Wow.
turkey because, I don't know how, but well, I do. I think it's just finding that one reason. One reason. Why, what is that one reason that's going to stop me doing what I'm doing? If you can find that one reason, that big why, and that's what I call it, the big why, the rest of it becomes easy.
And do you have a way to sort of remind you of what that one reason is if you are in a time when it's difficult to just remember it? Because I'm sure there must be times that's a bit more challenging.
Oh, look, I'm still going through it now. I've got some family issues where I've got a son that's starting to drink. He's in a big way. My wife's suffering a little bit of depression in that as well, so which is not going in the right direction. Because she had some issues with work about 12 to 18 months ago. So she's had to leave work, so she's been off on stress leave and depression. So I'm surrounded by it. And it's like for me, it's like I don't know, like I know what my reasons are, but what my reasons are and what their reasons are and what your reason is totally different. Only you can do that. And the biggest thing for me that I can say to people, and even with people that I talk to at the moment, is um, I can help you all I can, but if you haven't got that reason, that one reason or the big why, I can't help you.
Yeah,
I can lead you, but
it
I just
needs to
can't
be a
help you. You've
personal decision and a personal realization and
correct. It's
reason.
it's like I can push, I can be frustrated, which I still get frustrated. I still do all that sort of stuff, but not once do I, and it's quite strange. It's not once do I feel like I've got to go and have a drink. Like I've been in some pretty stressful situations, in the last 12 months to 18 months. But when it comes down to it, it's for me, it's connecting. I look at it and go, um, my reason is me, is that's my reason. I have to look after me the best I can. And knowing who you are I think is very important. So the true who you are, not the facade of what other people see. It's like you've really got to open up and go, take a good look at yourself and go, yeah, this is not me. That's not who I am.
And so, how do you sort of see people, especially men, finding that real self? What ways can they explore that being and getting to that point of getting to know themselves?
I don't know. Look, everyone's different. It's like the blokes that I take out in the country and we go fishing or go camping or I go to do axe throwing nights where we go to do throw axes at the boards and all sorts of different stuff we do. So again, the biggest thing that I can say with men, and it's like I'll give you an example. So I was doing some live, I call them men yarning meetups or well-being circles, men yarning circles. And I started doing a few just to trial to see how it would go about 12 months ago. And I was getting 3, 4, 5 guys come along on a Monday night at 7 o'clock, and we just do a Zoom like we're doing now, and we just sit around and have a yarn. We'd have a basic topic of what we're going to talk about, and then it would be okay. Let's open it up. One night it could be relationships, the next night it might be about drugs and alcohol, about addiction, whatever. But it didn't need to be, that was the topic, but we could go off on, wherever it needed to go.
Yeah.
So we'd have the same blokes come along quite regularly. I had about 3 or 4 coming along quite regularly. And there was one particular guy, he sort of interact a little bit of banter, general conversation, but he wouldn't sort of open up too much. And this went on for about 3 or 4 weeks. So everyone else is, having a bit of a talk and opening up a little bit. And he was just sort of, sitting there with the arms crossed and I go, yeah, no, no, I'm right. I'm not, I haven't got too much to talk about at the moment. Oh, okay, no worries. See you next week if you want to come next week. And I think it was on the 4th week that he came and we ended up doing what we do and it come to him. And next minute he just unloaded like the stuff that he ended up telling us and the stuff that come from him and his experiences and his challenges through his life was just mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. I could see because like he was always really guarded, really.
Yeah.
And when he was telling his story, you could see him change. You could see his whole physiology change. That was just like there was just this massive big weight that got lifted off him, and he was just a different bloke after that. So for me, it's like it's not. Again, we can't tell people what their reason is. They just have to. For me, it was spirituality. So it was knowing that I'm a part of a total consciousness. I, I'm not this body. I'm not the name. I'm not anything. I'm just an energetic being that's having a temporary human experience. That's the way I look at it.
All right. Yeah.
So for me, it's like I bring it back to that whatever the challenges are that are happening at that time, that's not me. That's an experience. I become the watcher of that experience and go, so that's why I say to people, if you can become the watcher of what that is, that you are not that experience. You don't take on that persona of whatever that is, whether it's drinking, whether it's, domestic violence, whether it's anger, whatever it is. If you can pull yourself away and go, okay, I'm just going to watch that. What is that? What's making me do that? And when you can do that, for me anyway, at least, that's my trigger to go when I feel myself, when I feel the ego self going back into that and becoming that experience, I then go, no, 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 that's not me. Come back, have a look at what's going on. Okay, right, now I can see what I'm doing. So let's do something different because that's not working. That's the old me, that's the ego me, that's not Terry, the spiritual being.
Yeah, and that's really important because it gets your brain to then recognize um, realities as it is and not as it sometimes feels,
Yeah,
because sometimes it feels really overwhelming and everything's pressing down on you, and that can just be too much.
yeah,
And you're stuck in this almost hole or cave or deep shadow. But just stepping out of that shadow, casting a light on the situation can really
exactly.
open up that
100,
reality.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. So, and that's the beauty of, what I'm doing with my breath work and the didgeridoo meditations and taking people out onto wellbeing walkabouts is when when I can get them out of their head through the breathwork style that I do, because I use the breathwork style that is used to play the didgeridoo. So it's a circular breathwork. So I'm actually teaching people how to circular breathe. Well, I don't call it circular breathe. I call it continuous rhythmic breathing, because that's what it is. You're continually breathing whole time. There's no stop. And because you're doing a lot of breath in through the nose, you get a lot of oxygen to the brain. So once you start doing that, they get lightheaded, then they're out of their head. So once I get people to that stage, it's then, okay, so now just focus on the breath and I'll play a rhythm to the didgeridoo and you breathe to the rhythm of that didgeridoo. So again, they've got to focus on the breath, watching it go in, watching it go out, while also listening to the rhythm of the didgeridoo. There is no room for thought. None.
Yeah.
So when you say to people, "Oh, I can't meditate because I can't stop thinking," well, it's not a matter of stopping to think because that's an impossibility. Again, we have to go back to what we just said before. It's like acknowledge the thought, let it pass. Yes, okay, I acknowledge that thought and let it pass. Once you let it pass, because what we all do, we hang on to it.
Yeah.
So let's acknowledge what's happening with that thought and let it go. Watch the next one, watch the next one.
Yeah.
And then before time, you end up with start getting little gaps in between your thoughts. So it's then focusing on that gap. So then the gap becomes bigger and bigger. But the way I do it with the circular breath and the didgeridoo, that takes no time for that to happen because there is no room for thought. So getting people to that stage out in the bush, then we can have a conversation. And that's what happens because everyone's, oh, wow, that was amazing. Okay, so let's have a yarn. What come up?
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
mean, I work as a physiotherapist and I work in pelvic health specifically. So we spend a lot of time doing breath work as well because your breathing is vital for so many functions in your body.
yeah,
And people really underestimate the power of breathing and just focusing in on your breathing and just doing something to change your breathing sometimes,
yeah,
and how it physically calms the body and it just gets your body
yeah,
back into a balanced state.
yeah,
So I always say we're going to start with something really simple, which is breathing, and we all think, oh, we just breathe because we stay alive, but actually it's got so much more to do with um, how we live and how we move, and obviously our cognitive state and how
100%.
how upregulated we are and whether we're under threat or whether we feel safe and whether we're able to then um, think realistically and,
Yeah,
like you say, going into then being open for conversations.
yeah, yeah, 100%.
Um,
And that's all I say to people is because to get yourself to start thinking of that why or that big, that one reason or that big why, you've got to get yourself to that state where you can start to pull yourself back and go, okay, rather than being reactive within, you can step back as the watcher and go, oh, okay, I understand why I'm doing that now. So what can we do about it? So it's then, okay, you need to go and find some help or, keep doing what you're doing with me or get some professional help or go on a retreat or, I'm finding that it's becoming a little bit more, not normal, but acceptable for blokes to start going on those type of retreats. It's starting to happen in Australia. Not as quickly as what I'd like, but it's happening.
As long as it's moving in that direction, any sort of movement in the right direction is a move in the right way. You've mentioned briefly about men yarning. So, men yarning is a community or a project that has many different facets to it. And I'll read this part because this is from your website. I don't want to get this wrong. It's a community that has a powerful goal of reducing male suicide by creating safe spaces for men to feel heard, supported, and valued. You furthermore have a goal of raising $1 million to donate to various charities, nonprofits, and grassroots support groups who focus on men's health and suicide prevention. So, can you tell us a little bit more about your community and what sort of projects you have and what you do with
Yeah,
Minyani?
sure. Well, like I said, through this conversation, for me, men yarning has been probably a thing in the works for probably the last 2 years. I haven't really been working it that much because I've been working a full-time job, so I haven't had the time and the money to put into bringing this where it needs to be. But that's all changed because as of 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, I no longer have a job. So this is going to be my full-time job. So I'm going to have the time to do it now, and it's born from lived experience. So it's not something I'm not a professional counselor, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not any of those things. I'm just a bloke that's been on this planet for 58 years and experienced a lot of different stuff. And you know, I've got to a stage where I think, well, how can I, Terry, help somebody? How can I help another bloke discover himself and help him with issues that he may be struggling with? And to me, men yarning got born from that. And our mantra is talk, chat, chew the fat. Our well-being matters. So to me, what the simplest thing I can do, you can do, or anybody can do is just reach out and to the men in your life, reach out to not just men, but reach out to the people. With I see the age of the internet and how we're all doing the Zoom calls, and we're probably at this point in history one of the most connected that we've ever been, but I feel that we're also one of the most disconnected that we've ever been, because there's not a lot of that going out and meeting people and going for a walk, or having a picnic, or going over to a mate's place for a barbecue, or that seems to all disappeared. I see it every day. You go to a coffee shop and people are sitting in a coffee shop having a coffee with somebody, and both of them are on their phones, scrolling away and not even conversing, not even talking. So to me, that's a big issue. So part of Men Yarning's mission is to try and start bringing some of that back, bring that physical human connection back to society, because it's sorely missing. And that's again, to me, one of the reasons why blokes don't necessarily talk, because they don't connect. Or it'll be a text here or there, or maybe a phone call, or whatever the case is. So men yarning is about creating that, like you said, creating a space for blokes to catch up, to connect. So I run what I call men yarning circles. There's a whole range of different things that we do, but me personally, what I can physically do, as well as promoting other organisations that are, the psychiatrists, psychologists, men's groups, men's sheds, people that are doing retreats for men, how I started, except that they were all women, which wasn't a bad thing. That's got me to where I am. So,
There would have been a
um,
lot of chatting on that retreat because
there was a lot, and
women
look, there was
talk
a
a
lot,
lot
there was a
more than
lot of
men do.
crying. There was a lot of crying, and most of that crying come from me. So, it was a place, that particular retreat that I went to it was just a safe space, and I felt it was quite funny when I went there. Is you feel what's right, and even just driving onto the property, I just felt like I was home. It was like, what's that feeling? It's like it
Mm.
just felt so light. So, going into the bush is not necessarily for everybody. You've got to find that. It might be going to the beach, it might be going for a swim in the ocean. I love that, but I get more enjoyment of going for a swim in a local river or a creek or under a waterfall or something like that. So you've just got to find what that thing is that creates that space for you. Um, it's becoming, again, talking about breath work and that there before, it's like blokes sort of tend to go, oh, what are you going to teach me how to breathe? I can already breathe. Oh, okay. Well, just come and have a look and see what we're doing. We'll see how you go. And, again, it's just that act of walking along in the bush or going camping and sitting around the campfire. The best thing that I can ever say to anybody, if you want to talk, if you want conversation to start, is get a fire pit in your backyard and invite some mates around a fire, because once you sit there and you're staring into that fire, I don't know what it is, but all barriers just disappear. And the conversation that comes out of sitting that around that campfire or sitting around a fire pit is just magical. So,
Yes, for sure.
so
And
men yarning,
as a South African, I can definitely say that we do like our fires. If you live anywhere in the world close to South Africans, hopefully you would have been invited to a proper braai. And it's not just about getting the meat and cooking the meat, but it is about that whole experience around being around the fire and
yeah.
having conversations around the fire.
Exactly, yeah. So look, yeah, men yarning is me physically doing those types of things, but it's more about promoting other organisations, other people, other groups that are working in around that space, bringing in bringing in those people into the community, so it's all in one space. So somebody's looking for something, they can come to men yarning, so whatever that may be. Hopefully they will be able to find what they're looking for. And if they can't, well, all they've got to do is reach out, and I can certainly try and find those things that may help.
And
So I also,
on your website, there's a whole array of numbers of different organizations that's available 24/7 in
yep,
Australia, obviously,
yep,
for different types of things, suicide prevention,
yep,
men's mental health, adult mental health, indigenous mental health, I
yep,
believe I read that.
yep,
So there is already a lot of resources available on the website, and
yeah,
I would strongly suggest if someone has um, the capacity to go and have a look and maybe just program a number in your phone, because then it's easy to just go onto your phone and click a number in
yep.
that moment when you actually need to contact, an organization like that.
100%, 100%. Yeah, so look, I do a number of other things. We run awareness campaigns. So we have two campaigns that we're going to launch in the next couple of weeks. One is called Men Yarning Monday, where Monday is the day where we talk, chat, chew the fat. We reach out to the men in our lives and we talk, chat, chew the fat about our health and well-being. So that's just a reminder each week, because there's a lot of different ones out there we have weeks or days in a year where it's all a big topic. I believe that it should be done every day. But look, Men Yarning Monday is the day that I've earmarked, and it's just Monday's always a tough part of the week for people. So hey, look, here it is, Men Yarning Monday. Let's just reach out and see how people are, how they go over the weekend, what's happening, and getting ready for the week. Our major fundraising campaign, which is coming up, is called Brew for a Bro, and that is based around coffee shops and restaurants selling a coffee. So, in short, we will be getting cafes and that involved, and for every cup that's sold, we'll donate a fairly substantial amount of money out of that coffee cup. So at this stage, it's probably going to be looking at around about 30 cents, 40 cents a cup, that we'll donate to the selected organisations that we're going to choose for that particular campaign. So that in a nutshell, that's what we do. So we don't run campaigns, events, and experiences all based around men's health and well-being and suicide prevention.
And so, do you still have your Zoom meetings, or is all of your like meetings in person at the moment?
I will be starting up the Zoom meetings again very shortly. I did them. I did those meetings for around about probably 6 months as a bit of a trial, see what worked, what didn't work. So yeah, definitely going to start those up again because this is so community based, so very local. It's like, okay, it's great having big multinational stuff, but this type of stuff is very close-knit community based.
Yeah.
So, you know, I guess the big picture that I'd like to see men yarning is that I have men yarning circles all around the countryside, and eventually it'd be great to have them overseas, but think local, think global, act local. I think that's it. Um,
It
but
just
yeah, so
starts with
again,
it just starts with one person and it
correct,
can go from there.
and that's what we're doing. So we'll start our local chapter of the Men Yarning Circle, and then obviously get further abreast through the Zoom meetings and see how we go from there.
That's great. And it is also great to have different options and to have the online versus the in-person option and to have the in-person things that you talked about, the bushwalks and the getting back to connecting with nature and the land and um, the adventurous side for the adventurous blokes who might connect in that way.
Correct.
So I do think it is important to just tap into people's things that they enjoy doing,
Yep.
because that's part of creating a safe space and a safe environment.
Yeah.
And while you were talking, I was very much thinking about a quote that says, shame dies when stories are told in safe spaces." And I often think that people are not sharing because of the shame attached to a lot of the problems that we're dealing with. Um,
100%.
Obviously, socially and culturally, and sometimes within families, there is a lot of shame attached to whatever you may be doing that's not appropriate or that's seen as negative. But
Very much so, and that's where you tend to get a lot more um your barrier let down when it's not because you don't want to say that to your family. You don't want to put that for that exact reason, that shame that's attached to it and the guilt. So it tends to be, and I guess that's why people go to psychiatrists and psychologists and counselors because they can let stuff out to somebody that they don't know anything about
yeah,
and know that it's going to stay there. So,
yeah, and
however it's done,
yeah, that is
you know,
important sometimes to have the professionals involved, but I also love that, like you said, you're coming from a place of experience and you're just another bloke who's been through it,
yeah.
um, who's able to help guide people on their own journeys.
All I can do is just relay my experiences, and then if one person relates to that and they connect with that, it's been a success,
Yes,
you
definitely.
know. So yeah,
Then I'd like to ask, in terms of indigenous practices and things. Obviously, I don't know a lot about that, and I'm sure the rest of the world doesn't know a lot about that. Do you think there are some indigenous practices or just beliefs and things around health and maybe men's health specifically that the world can learn from?
uh, look, like I said before, I think again this is coming from me, from my experience, what I connect with. It all comes back to connection to country, connection to family. So in Australian Indigenous culture, everyone's an uncle, everyone's an auntie. So everyone is your family, everyone is your brother, everyone is your sister. Yeah, for sure. It's like you have like anything, you got different tribes and different mobs, everyone has their stuff. But for me, it's like it really just comes down to that one word, which is connection. whatever that connection may be. But for Indigenous culture, it really, really goes back to that the pride and belief in ancestors, in spirituality, in the stories. You know, they're stories, but who knows?
Mm.
It's for me, it's like, yeah, just get connected back to that. Follow that belief, whatever makes you feel good.
Yeah.
That's what it really comes down to. So
Yeah.
again, for Indigenous culture, what can people learn? Um, it's just having the true identity, I guess, of who you are. So knowing who you are, knowing where you come from, however you want to see that. Um, like for me, I'm a spiritual being having a temporary human experience. So again, that body, I'm not the body, I'm not the name, I'm not that thing. I'm all things all of the time, everywhere. And that's the connection for me, Indigenous people have is they have the connection with the trees, they have the connection with the animals, you have in um, what's the word I'm looking for? You have totems that are given to you. You have tribe totems that you're responsible for particular parts of the country or particular animal. So my totem is the magpie. So when you get given your totem, when you get given your skin name, what animal or what plant is that you are responsible for, you have to look after that.
Yeah.
So that
And it's
really
a
ties it
collective
ties you back into that
responsibility.
country. It's the responsibility. That's what we do. So, I think if one thing would come out of how could Indigenous culture change the world is remembering that we don't own the land. We don't own any of that. We are here for a short period of time to be the custodians of that. So, um, whatever that is, whatever that means to you, it's like, I'm not the owner. I'm just here. I'm here temporarily to
Mm.
to look after Mother Earth, to look after country, to look after my family, to look after myself. Um,
And we'll
and
get
yeah, just enjoy
healthy
the experience.
individuals, healthy
What's that, sorry?
individuals. We'll get healthy individuals by getting healthy societies.
Yeah, it's we're I think we're one of the most unhealthiest that we've ever been. Um, for
For sure.
whatever. Well, I know the reason, but I won't go down that. I won't go down that path. Um, but yeah, it's just knowing who and what you are. That's all I could say.
That's really important.
Yeah.
All right, Terry, I've got a final question for you. So,
Okay.
if you could change the conversation around men's health or healing in one way, what would that be?
In one way,
In one way.
talk, chat, chew the fat.
Good.
Just talk. It's talking won't kill you. Not talking probably will.
Right. Yes.
And at the moment in Australia, we lose 8 men per day to suicide, and those figures are under recorded. A lot of that doesn't get recorded. So, saying eight, that's a huge number. I think I saw numbers the other day of, I'm not sure whether it was just America or could have been worldwide. There's something like about 600,000. So one per minute. We lose one man in the world every single minute to suicide.
Yeah, and that's so, I mean,
I mean,
we
it's not a
know
good way
it's
to leave
happening.
the conversation, but
Yes, we know it's happening, and we,
it's got to be talked about more too. It's the one thing I would say, you're talking about what could we do about talking, that needs to be brought out into the light. as well. It tends to be a taboo subject. No one wants to talk about it because of the shame and the guilt and all of that stuff that goes with it from the people that are left behind. But if we don't talk about it, it's going to continue.
Yeah.
It's going to continue.
If you do nothing,
So
nothing's going to happen about it.
it's going to keep happening. So what can we do? What's the one thing that any one person can do? We don't need to be a professional, is just reach out, be prepared to talk, open up, be connected to the people in your life, to the people that you love, even to the strangers. I mean, I see them every day. Like, there's a guy that I walk past every day in the bushwalk that I go to every Saturday, and he's walking a pit bull terrier, very aggressive dog, and I look up at him and he's as aggressive as what the dog is. He's not a happy man. And I say good morning to him, and I'm just hoping one day he's just going to stop and have a chat, like, because he's not a happy person. So we just have to be aware of the signs and be prepared to just go, hey, what's going on? Do you
Yeah.
need to talk? Do you
Yeah.
need to chat? Do you want to chew the fat? That's it. I'm here.
Well, thank you for talking with me tonight, and
Very
thank you
welcome.
for your organization as well and the amazing work that you're going to continue doing there, I'm sure.
Definitely.
And yes, thank you for bringing things into the light, and sharing a little bit about your experiences and how other men can also just hone in to actually find themselves and hopefully find the courage to talk.
100%.
If you have listened to this story on He Speaks today, thank you. This is just one of many stories, and yours could be next. If you would like to share your story, please reach out.